Good evening. It is 7 p.m. on Monday, October 13th, and I'm calling the Economic Development Authority meeting to order. With that, looking for a motion to adopt this evening's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Francis,
Second.
second by Burek. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Next item of business this evening is the minutes from the September 8th EDA meeting. Any corrections on those? Administrator Colander? Nothing?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Looking for a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Moved by Francis,
Second.
second by Warden. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, 6-0. Next item of business this evening is old business, and that is our downtown redevelopment, and I'm gonna turn that over to our planner, Mr. Cultus.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and EDA members. I have a couple of things that I wanted to go through tonight with you. I'm hoping that I can connect so that we can show the screen. So let's see if this goes now. It just says I'm not connected. Try one more with a different browser.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
10.1,
100.1.1.
100.1.1. Okay. I think it's gonna work. Okay. Room 1, passcode 6896. And all right. So, since we have last met or talked, the city has continued to work with the downtown redeveloper on the redevelopment plan for the redevelopment kind of site plan, as well as we've been working on deal points associated with the overall redevelopment. And so with that, there's been some things that the city's been working on that I just want to go over. The city's been working with the developer on an updated site plan that corresponds to what the city is trying to put forward for potential street redevelopment, a street redevelopment section. So one of the things we've been going back and forth with the developer on is what the section of Maple and Main will look like in the after condition. And we've been trying to capture, making sure that we can get parking, we can get sidewalk, and then we'd be able to get the city's streetscape that would allow street trees, street lighting, and then kind of a walkable sidewalk. And so we've been kind of going back and forth between Bolton Mank and myself, and then the developer's engineer, to try to get to a point where we think we're really close on what this site layout looks like as it relates to just kind of the parking, the street dimensions, and then the sidewalk dimensions for the building. We haven't gotten too far into to the elevations of the building or anything that start to show kind of the third dimension, but for now we're trying to get to what this site plan would ultimately look like. So we've been working quite a bit on that. The city has also put together a tax increment financing kind of calendar and plan that would, and it's in your packet, that would show how we're going to get from where we are today to ultimately being able to consider a tax increment financing package that would work for this project. And so we've been kind of working through different pro formas from the developer, different tax increment financing analysis with Northland to try to just get us to a point where we'd have a schedule for kind of moving forward, and then what that might look like. So with that, we've been going back and forth with the developer on his pro forma and the city's tax increment financing analysis. In order to get to these numbers, we've met with Hennepin County. I've actually met a couple times with the county to try to go through what they might assess the building or what the taxable market value of the building would be, so that we could get as close as we can to trying to project what the increment generated off of this project would be. So with all of that, we're at a place now where the developer is in a position to move forward with the second, kind of committing to the second phase of the purchase agreement, which means that they would be putting more money down for the city, and they'd be moving into preparing a set of drawings to submit for full entitlement. So they would be making application for preliminary, final plat and site plan review for the downtown buildings. And so they've got an architect engaged, they've got engineering and landscape architecture and everybody else engaged at this point, and they're ready to proceed with that. They also completed their market study, which I included in the packet. It's a long study, but essentially it supports their notion, which is that a 71 unit building is supported by the market, and the rents that were projected, the developer feels are rents that they're comfortable with and that work well with their pro forma. So with all of that, we're at a point now where trading information back and forth, the developers come back and they said, I want to move forward, I'm ready to go. My pro forma is still a little bit shy of where I think it needs to be for me to feel really comfortable moving forward. I've had a bunch of conversations with Tammy from Northland to kind of walk through that. And right now they're sitting just below a 6% return on, and they look at return on cash investment, but that's a common number that they use for an investor, and they really want to be right at about 6%. So I said, well, in order to do that, what is it that you need? In order to do that, they need somewhere in the neighborhood of about another $300,000 in the form of assistance from the city. And that's not a perfect number, and their numbers aren't perfect because everything we do is estimated, because we don't know exactly what all of this comes back in. We're doing our best to guess where it is. But with that said, one of the things we've held fast on is we want to maintain the city's fees. So we've talked about whether or not there'd be any room in the city's fee schedule or in the city's fees charged for this development to consider offsetting some of their costs with additional fees or fee waiver. And then we've also looked at increasing the percentage of tax increment financing as another way to do it. As another way to generate additional revenue if we want to generate additional revenue for the developer. So in looking at all of that, there's two pro formas in here. One was the original pro forma that we looked at, tax increment analysis that we looked at, which was a 70-30 split, meaning the city would give the developer 70% of the tax increment generated on the project, and the city would retain 30%. The second one that I had Tammy run was a 20-80 split, so the developer would get 80% and the city would retain 20%. That does generate approximately an additional $300,000 over the life of the district. And so I just want to have that conversation with EDA relating to that particular piece. And then the other two items that I had just to talk about tonight were, if we're in a position to move forward, we would want to initiate our phase 2 or our second environmental investigation, which really constitutes us putting holes in the ground to see if there is any kind of vapor that is present. That's really going to then drive whether or not we have to have some sort of mitigation system included in the building or not included in the building. And so we've always been kind of waiting on that to try to get a project that's ready to go before we decide to move forward. But we're now at a position where I think we're ready to move forward. And then the other piece of that is tax increment financing. In order to certify the tax increment financing, we need to certify essentially the museum building as substandard, which it's not gonna take a lot, but it does have to be done, and it has to be done in a format that then is approvable by the city and then defendable that it meets the statutory requirements. And so I have this phase 2 teed up. I have the TIF certification essentially of this building substandard. I have that teed up, and then I wanna just talk about this additional possible subsidy to the developer. So with that, be happy to answer any questions, or we can just kind of talk about the subsidy piece. I think the phase 2 and the TIF certification or the building certification, those are pretty straightforward. There are a lot of choices as it relates to the environmental engineer, but we're continuing to go back to Wank, or now it's Stantec, just because they've done the original investigation. They have a lot of history. It's easier to just kind of work with somebody who's already done the basis and has all the information. As it relates to the TIF certification or the substandard building certification, there's really only a handful of people in the whole metro that even do that. LHB is somebody we've hired before to do it. They do a really good job. Their reports are accepted all the time, and they meet all the requirements. So, but with that, happy to just talk through that or go into more detail, or have a discussion on this funding piece.
Questions from anyone? Discussion? Still good?
Mark, can we call this out without additional money? Does this project not go anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth. I think the developer's pretty transparent with his information, but he's a developer. He's trying to make money. He has investors who want to make money. So he's not here. I knew he wasn't going to be here tonight because he had another commitment. I thought maybe somebody representing him would be here, but in either case, I think, he and I have talked about it. He's given us his pro forma. I mean, he gave us his Excel document and said, "It's my numbers. You can go through or scrutinize any." We did. Tammy does that, right, for cities all the time. And she said, I don't think his ask is unreasonable. I think the 6% is market. I think that's what people are trying to get to. She had a caveat with that, though, which is it's not perfect. His numbers aren't perfect. What we give him's not perfect. So can we get a project without it? I think we're right at the, it's just razor thin. So I don't know that he'd walk away, but what he's told me is I really need a little bit more to make it go.
Oh, not surprising, but a little disappointing. Where do interest rates play into that pro forma? Because we're in a market right now where interest rates are going to be going down in the next months.
They would definitely play into it. I mean, that's part of his financing. So I mean, he's got a return that he's projecting, but part of that is based on that he's borrowing money to do it.
What are they projecting for interest rates?
I could look at the pro forma to see. I didn't focus in on that, but I can see what's in there.
Because obviously the ask comes to us, it says, find a way to come up with more money. The other way is, of course, to move the equation on the other side of the thing, and he looks more at his pro forma to go, where are we? I mean, everything from what he charges to what he's anticipating. As Tammy said, it's not an exact science. I get that. And maybe there's some middle ground in there between him just saying, I want another $300,000 versus, you know what, let's share this a little bit.
Well, and there is a point I didn't highlight it exactly, but one of the things that we talked about in doing that is he would reduce his. What we came up with was about a $600,000 gap, and the way that we got to the 300 was that he would reduce his development fee by $300,000. So I don't know I don't know that it's an apple for an apple, but it is something. He is trying to take some of his profit and pull it back down. So what we talked about in this split, or in this 300,000, was that we would essentially split it. That was his proposal. You know, you come up with 300, and I'll come up with 300. He's trying to make it work. I mean, I think it's in good faith that he's trying to make it work. I do not feel like he's asking us to be one-sided in what we've been talking about so far.
If we split the TIF differently to the way you proposed it, does that provide us enough to do what we need to do on our side with our 20 or 30%?
Yeah, it starts making your side. I mean, 300,000 takes down what you can do for your side, and I think we would need to. I think we would need to look at what that analysis is, to what that impact is to the city, because we're getting below that it's going to cover 100%. Now you guys are trying to get the LRIP funds, which would obviously help that, and there's going to be an assessment piece on that project. So I don't think we've looked at what's the total impact to the city on that project based on, you know, the total project. When we've been looking at it, at least for the last couple of years, we've always just been looking at Maple and Main in that little quadrant. And we've got a bigger project that we're actually talking about doing all the way down Main Street. So that analysis hasn't been completed by the developer, or by us, I mean, as to what the total impact would be. Just trying to find the interest rate.
Hard to have us make a recommendation, though, if there isn't gonna be enough revenue generated by the TIF, that we have to start digging into other dollars to make a project work. This has always been based on the fact that project would generate what we need to in order to make it work from both sides.
Right.
Where's that line? Is it at 300? Is it at 200? I don't know.
I think, you know, in order to do that, I think we'd have to do some more analysis on the overall project. I know
Give us a
that.
best guess, Mark.
Well, so the net present value of the TIF that's being generated in the projections is really about what the borrowing power is. So if you look at the 30%, under the 70 to 30, this is the number. I'm going to blow it up. I mean, it's about $1 million in TIF revenue. And then we have another, and I need to look about, say 300 to 400,000 in fees that are going to come in. So sewer, water, stormwater fees that would come in with the development. Those would be paid upfront by the developer. So I look at the combination of those fees plus the TIF as your total towards what you would then potentially use or be able to borrow. That's about 1.5. It's right under 1.5 million, which is what we've always been targeting as this piece. So if we drop by 300,000, that takes you below that threshold. Now, with that said, the city does have the ability to recoup if the project and the valuation is higher over time. We would definitely have the ability to repay ourselves. One of the things we've talked about is not giving up our fees, because we're kind of giving up the known. And I like to look at, I'd rather look at giving up the TIF at the end, or giving up the percentage of TIF, because that's an unknown. That's a pay as you go. There's no guarantee in the TIF, whereas the fees would be coming in day one. So if we were looking at anything, it would be, to me, the best way to look at it is with the percentage of TIF. The total fees that we projected on this project were You have that, yeah.
Got it set.
How much of that was park dedication though? Cause that,
Dedication 266.
yeah, so it's really the 686 minus the 266, cause the park dedication is totally unrelated. I mean, it is fees, but it's totally unrelated really to your ability to pay for sewer, water, things like that. But the fees, the other fees, the SACWAC,
410,000.
yeah, see, so it's like right at that 1.4, we're really close at 1.5 million is what we've always been trying to get to.
And we're a little under at 1.2.
Yep, so we'd be down at 1.2, a little bit less potentially. There's one other piece that Jacob and I are trying to figure out, and that is whether or not we still have SAC credits. I don't know, anybody who was here when we did Elam remembers we gave Elam SAC credits as a offset. So the city over the years, well, I think we have about 50 SAC credits left, but we're gonna try to confirm that. We had 50 in 2020, right at the beginning of 22, which was after Elam. That's why I think we still have about 50. Yeah, they were like 18, 19, yeah. So we confirmed when we were in 21 is the last correspondence I have. So we can see on that would be a really good potential offset for this project is if we had SAC credits, we could use some of those as maybe a piece of that package. I don't.
You want to explain to the new people what a SAC credit is?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't, so the city, as the city developed, the city paid the Met Council, or essentially established with the Met Council, a sewer access charge, which corresponds with a particular property address or a particular building. And as the city builds out, they report a new building that's built, how many sewer access charges that building pays in, and the Met Council keeps tabs of that. When the city demolishes a building or a building goes away, those SAC credits are then credited back to the city, essentially, or the property, but really the city is the holder of those. And those credits then are available essentially to the city to use to offset then when a new project would come in and be charged offsetting SAC credits. And so the Met Council keeps this balance for the city. In 2015, 16, we discovered that we had a substantial surplus of SAC credits that have been generated over the years. We used some of those SAC credits to essentially provide a subsidy to Elam to build their new project. The city, I think, still has actually a pretty good little number of those, but we're trying to confirm whether or not those SAC credits exist. That would be another piece that we could layer in to not reduce, or to help offset our total give to the project if that's something we wanted to look at.
So when I heard you speaking earlier, you were asking for the 80-20. Do we want to consider maybe 75-25?
Yeah,
Looking at different packages and different ways to get there.
absolutely. Yeah, I
I
think
think I would entertain that.
75-25 as a possibility.
As a possibility.
That would generate probably somewhere in the 200,000, 200 and, or a little under maybe, right? 100, yeah.
I mean, the combination of what interest rates could do, the potential SAC credits that we could figure out. This feels like it's doable
Yeah,
without giving them a shift. I know, yeah, and you're right, he's a developer trying to make money.
Yeah.
I get it.
I think that's a reasonable response anyway, that we'd be willing to go back to a 75-25 with the possibility, and we'd have to research whether or not we have SAC credits. But SAC credits, if our number's right, those could generate,
122,000.
yeah. But if we wanted to just give them you know, if we wanted to do a 75-25 and then maybe like 40 SAC credits or something, which essentially would be, you know, half is SAC, half of those, that'd be 100,000 plus the 75-25. I think that's a reasonable response. Obviously, we're trying to get the deal done. He's trying to get the deal done. I mean, he's put a lot into this, and he has, I mean, he if he was sitting here, he'd tell you the same thing. He wants to go. He does not have another project that he's working on right now. This one is one that they really like. His investment group really likes it, and they want to try to make it work. And it's, I will tell you, it's hard. Like, there's not a lot of deals flying around because it's hard right now. Everybody's trying to figure it out. But that doesn't mean, you know, we have to give up everything. I mean, we want to try to make it work. But I'd feel comfortable going back to him with that 75-25 and a potential SAC credit if we have it.
That feels like a win for me, for everyone. You know, it still says we're open to this, we want to work with you, we want to see it happen, but we're also not willing to give it all away.
I just find it odd that that's such a large number to me, I guess, that is a gap there. Seems like, how was that missed? I know you try to explain it, but to me, it's still crazy to me.
How did we get to that?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like that should have been figured out you know.
Well,
I guess I don't understand everything about this situation or how this whole thing works, but that seems like an awfully big number.
yeah, I think, you know, on a $16 million project, it's really not, you know, that big when you're
Suppose, but
when you're thinking about that. And I mean, some of these numbers are moving. One of the things that we did in our projection that did change it a little bit, it's part of why he's back. His initial pro forma, he had a $235,000 per unit cost in, and after talking to the assessor, that was outside of the range. Now, she said, she goes, I'm super uncomfortable giving you guys a hard number in Maple Plain because I have nothing to compare it to in Hennepin County. We really don't have anything on this western edge. So we were looking at what are the numbers for like a Wright County, a Delano building, right? That was one of the comparables. We have Matt's other project in Long Lake, but that project's different. It's not the same. So when I was talking to the assessor, and I did talk to the assessor on 3 different meetings, she just was like, I've searched all over trying to find comps for this building. I'm not comfortable. So what she gave us as her range was a really broad range. I went back to Tammy, we talked through it, and we decided we'd go with 225. That was the top of where Tammy said I would feel comfortable recommending to the council to put our TIF analysis. It's very possible this building comes in higher and it's assessed higher. It's very possible, which is it's a good thing. It's a good thing for us that, you know, then we would realize that. But so that $10,000 per unit is it's a difference in how much TIF was generated by the project then.
yeah, I know.
And that's my
I know that's your gap. It's still a risk.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's still a risk, which is why if we do it through a percentage, the risk then is mitigated somewhat because we're only promising him what is generated. We're not promising him something that we don't know about. It's why I think the fees are good to keep, and it's why we've talked about keeping the fees, is then you're getting that cash up front.
Commissioner Burak has something.
I would like to say I like the idea of keeping the fees in place, and I would be willing to go with a 5% difference here, especially because there is a lot of unknown with it. So the risk is kind of on both sides for changing the TIF numbers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Warden?
Yeah, I'll chime in. I think the same. I think we definitely want to keep those fees up front. I'm in a little bit different position as the rest of you sit on council. You have to make some of your decisions based on other kind of funding. For me, solely as a member of the Economic Development Authority, from an economic development standpoint, I absolutely agree. I think this project is something we've been working on for a while. I think these market rate rooftops in kind of that CBD area that we have will be a benefit. I think great idea in terms of, again, kind of, yeah, we're willing to work with you, bumping to that 75%. It still shows our willingness to work. You know, I think looking at the TIF valuation here, it has an estimated taxable market value annual growth of 1%, which I think is on the conservative side. And so I think the potential for TIF funds there, I think it's unlikely that we would come in under these projections. And I see, hopefully they realize that too, that, if that goes up, then that's additional funding for them, and it's also more money in our pocket.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions? Is that enough direction for staff?
It is, and just Jacob found a letter from 23 still showing 58 credits. I think that's what's there. We just need to get the confirmation that that's still our number, and then I think we'd be able to use some of those if we wanted to do that, which would be, I think, a really good way to try to make this go together was 75-25 with a SAC credit.
Sounds like a good compromise and, good step forward on both sides. And I think there's consensus then that that's a direction that we'd like for you to take back to the developer.
Great.
All right.
Is there any other questions, or is there consensus or direction to move forward with the environmental and/or the TIF certification? And the only thing I'd note on the environmental, there's and I just learned of this week actually, but there is in the last week, there's a window for boring where it's not winter cost versus winter cost, and it's November 1. And I don't know that anybody thinks about that with environmental boring holes, but apparently it's a thing. So I think it would be great if we could go ahead and move forward on that. I had put 15 to 20,000. I got the formal proposal after there's a couple of questions that I needed to go through with Stantec, and you guys probably know that Adam Zabel is his name. He's the guy that's done all our environmental when we did Olson's, and which is helpful for us. But anyway, his boring price he locked in because he actually was able to find somebody that could still do it is $11,474. So that's what we'd be talking about
If we did it before November
if we
1.
do it before November 1. But we'd have to tell him like tomorrow, go and get it done. Otherwise, we're out. But I know that the EDA is limited on that. But I just thought I'd bring it up.
Well, we have to do the environmental work. We've been waiting on that until and there was as I recall, there was a timing issue that you didn't want to do this 2 years ago.
Yeah, because we
Had it
would have
done,
wasted it.
It
Yeah.
would have
It
been
gets
a
old.
waste.
Yep.
So it does seem like now is the time to do that.
I
I
agree.
mean, without a meeting though, can we just, staff can just, Jacob, can you proceed?
I think that if you guys give us direction in this meeting, to move forward with it, we'll take that as the approval to use, the EDA funds to do that, and the council will approve it when it comes to,
We could bring the formal proposal in a week and a half or whatever,
Yeah.
or
we're gonna have it on the consent
2 weeks.
agenda.
Yeah.
And it will come out of the EDA funds. So, and, I mean, it's planned, it's the time, so why not save some money and do it now before November 1? Right. General consensus then to move forward with the environmental boring?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right. Okay, you have the go-ahead to
Great.
do that too, please.
Great.
And then you wanted to talk more about the TIF if we wanted to lock it in?
Well, I'll
or you
bring
wanna
that.
wait?
I'll bring the TIF. I'll bring the TIF to your council meeting. I have a formal proposal for that. It's $4,900. We're gonna have to do it at some point to certify. What we're looking at, I try to connect again, but I bet it'll take too long. But if you look at that survey that we did, essentially what we need to do is certify that we meet redevelopment standards. We've talked about this a multitude of times. We still, I mean, and this is like crazy that we can still do it because we've torn down all the buildings, except for we still have the museum, and that actually still counts. So if we certify the museum substandard, along with the old parking lot that's still there, it counts for our coverage. If we bring these 5 properties into one property, which we would do, we would plat those, then we meet our coverage test and we have the substandard building and we can tear down, or we can qualify this for redevelopment. So that's what we're trying to do, because redevelopment TIF is what makes everything work on this. So in order to do that, we have to have a report that says the building's substandard. I mean, it's the simplest report ever done, but it still has to check all the boxes, so it's not like it's that much cheaper, even though it's a building that will take 3 minutes to go in and say it doesn't meet they still have to say why, what's the value, what's the cost of improving it. I mean, there's still work. So LHB, who's done it for us before, Mike Fisher, is one of the few people that does this still in the metro, and so that's how we got the proposal. We'll bring that to the council meeting, but if the EDA is agreeable, I mean, it would be a recommendation to the city council that we do it.
And once that museum, assuming it would be deemed substandard, which is to be expected, what would the plan be for that then in terms of communication with them and time?
If we're ready to move forward and Matt submits the full thing, then, I mean, we're gonna give them a notification of the approximate timing for being able to remove that.
Okay.
So, I mean, I did talk to Jacob and, Independence just winterized our building, so we would have ability to try to help them at least for either temporary or whatever they wanna do to move some of their stuff, if that's something they wanted to do. We could work with them on that, for sure, but, or they could, I mean, I don't know how they do it, but I think we try to give them as much time as possible. to
Exactly.
Say, this is what we're thinking about.
And they have been aware of this for years, and they do have the opportunity to build in Veterans Memorial Park as well, so, okay, just want to make sure that doesn't fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
All right, I think then we'll wait on the TIF. I think we've got enough for right now. Administrator Colander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did have a conversation with Judy Sutherland about the option of going over to the newly remodeled Museum in Independence. And I think they were gonna talk that over, but we'll certainly address that again as we get closer and kind of come up with a
Okay.
plan.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, sounds good. All right. Anything else that
Nope.
staff needs from us this evening?
It's great.
Right, anything else from any of the commissioners? No new business come before us, looking for, or other business, looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Warden,
Second.
second by Burek. All in favor?
Aye.
Post same sign. Meeting's adjourned at 7:38.